There are in the rectory a couple of spots, parts of the rectory, if you've not been in it, were built in the 1880s, and the building's been added to and rearranged over the decades, over the more than a century there. And there are some rooms where there are light switches that don't seem to do anything anymore. And there's a couple spots where it's that mystery switch, and probably lots of old homes have them. And it's like you sit there, well, what does this actually do? And it doesn't seem to do anything. Some of them have just been left there, and as we've kind of done some repairs and improvements, we've taken out things that don't do anything anymore. But we're left looking sometimes at these, some of them are rather old antique knob and tube buttons that you push that don't do anything anymore. And in fact, when we renovated the kitchen a few years ago, after all the appliances were in need of replacement, we found in the ceiling, as we took the ceiling tiles out, that there were still lead pipes that had the old gas lines for the gas lamps. In the kitchen was originally the dining room, and what's now the dining room was originally the front parlor. And all of those had these little thin lead pipes. And we've left some of them up there just for antiquity, that the next time some pastor 30 years from now goes and renovates again, they'll find these antique things. They don't do anything, and I was assured that there's no gas running through them. They're not connected to anything on any end. There's just these tubes running through, these little pipes that don't do anything. And that's frustrating, that sometimes we see things where it's like, well, that's nice, but what does it do? And the end of the Christmas season brings us to this place, this moment, where as we leave the stable of Bethlehem behind, we're gazing not simply at the Christ child, God who is with us, but God who is with us for a purpose. And these celebrations around Epiphany, which tomorrow for us brings us with the Magi to adore the Christ child. Today we hear the wedding at Cana, which is often also tied to Epiphany. In many of the Eastern churches, the Feast of the Epiphany is less about the kings or the Magi than it is about these manifestations of Jesus' power, authority, and capacity to save us. And we come really with Mary to this major transition moment, as Mary is presenting her son as the one who can do something about all our needs. She's telling the waiters to listen to him, do whatever he tells you. And she's really entrusting her son to the church, saying, do whatever he tells you. And then Mary also demonstrates that it's not only okay, but it is with great confidence that we can come to the Lord with our needs. Not something as mundane as they've run out of wine, but Lord, save me, as we hear so many people cry out in the Gospels, the disciples crying out in the storm, people coming to the Lord for healing. And all of us, as we stand and gaze at the cross, to recognize the gift of life that the Lord comes to offer us. And so we give thanks that Christ has come, that God is with us in his being, but he has also come to do something and to accomplish something. And as we move out of the Christmas season on Monday, we're reminded all the more that our hearts should always be open to what God is effecting in us, to what Christ has come to do, to offer, to give, to bestow, and to save in us. And so we are grateful and mindful, fixing our gaze on God who is with us, and we're engaged in that work. Not just passively, that we aren't just sitting and being, but we too are active and doing, actively receiving, actively participating. And that begins here in the liturgy, that we aren't just here as bystanders or passive spectators, but we too engage in our own offering of something, of our devotion, our prayer. And that's why the liturgy, particularly in the Mass, engages us, body, spirit, mind, our senses, our words, our active listening and our silence, our devotion, all about hearts that are offered. So that in the liturgy, when the priest says, pray that my sacrifice and yours may be acceptable to God, it's a reminder that we are offering something, we are giving something, we too are doing something. And so that no one would ask of us, well, that's fine that you're a Christian, but what do you do? Be mindful that you, in fact, do something for the Lord, your own witness. And it begins here in our prayer and our devotion, that we can say with gratitude that we are something because of Christ, but we also do something with Christ.